My wife cheated on me with her boss, and now she's suing me for $250, $0 in joint property that I supposedly promised her after discovering she's been secretly stealing from our joint account. She spun this lie to take everything I have. I never thought I'd be the guy writing about how I caught my wife cheating on me, but here I am. The craziest part. It all started with a gut feeling that turned into a full-blown nightmare. One day I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well, and I decided to check her phone just out of instinct. That's when I saw the messages. At first I thought maybe I was overreacting, maybe she was just talking to a friend or something innocent. But then I saw the texts. The flirty, suggestive stuff. The way she called her boss daddy in one message, said she couldn't wait to see him again. My stomach sank. Her boss's name is. He's a tall, handsome guy, always dressed sharp, the kind of guy who oozes confidence. The kind of guy I always felt a little threatened by, but I never thought he'd actually sleep with my wife. Turns out, I was wrong, because that's exactly what she was doing. I saw the dates, the times, the way she was talking about how excited she was to meet him after work last week. My wife had been acting weird lately, more distant, snapping at me over small things, canceling plans last minute. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was stressed at work or just tired. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The thing is, I didn't want to believe it. I mean, I loved her. We had been together for 8 years. We built a life, good jobs, a nice house, a shared bank account. I thought we were solid, but reading those messages, I realized I'd been blind. She'd been sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face. And what's worse, she's been stealing money from our joint account. I found out because I was going through our bank statements, just routine, trying to plan a vacation for us, when I noticed a series of small withdrawals I didn't recognize. It was a few hundred here, a few hundred there. At first, I thought maybe I'd forgotten about some bills or something, but then I looked closer. I pulled up her phone history, her email, and saw she'd been transferring money into some private accounts. She lied about where those funds went, said it was for shopping or emergencies. But I knew better. I knew she had a side hustle, selling stuff online, maybe even something more sketchy. That's when I started putting the pieces together. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the new shoes, the expensive dinners she'd insisted I didn't need to know about. It all pointed to one thing, was cheating and stealing at the same time. I was furious, not just because she betrayed me, but because she lied so effortlessly. She's a bitch when she gets defensive, always spinning some story about how I don't understand her, how she's just stressed, how I'm overreacting. She told me I was paranoid, that she loved me, that I was making things up. She even had the nerve to cry and accuse me of not trusting her. Meanwhile, I was sitting there holding her phone in my hand, knowing she'd been lying to my face for months. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly kind of stupid. How did I not see it? How did I miss all the signs? That night I couldn't sleep. Instead, I stayed up and watched her sleep, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak. I kept thinking about everything we'd been through, our wedding, the plans for a future, the little moments that meant everything to me. All of it was a lie, and I knew I had to do something. I started formulating a plan, not just to confront her, but to make her pay. She thought she could get away with everything, but I wasn't going to let her. Not without a fight. I knew she'd try to spin it, try to turn it around on me, but I had proof now, and I was going to use it. That's when I realized this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the money, the betrayal, everything she'd taken from me without a second thought. I'd worked hard for what we had, and she'd been sneaking around, stealing from us, lying to my face. I didn't know how I was going to handle it all yet, but I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her walk all over me anymore. She'd pushed me to the edge, and I was about to push back hard. The next day I couldn't focus at work. My mind kept circling back to what I'd found, replaying those messages and the bank statements. I kept asking myself, how deep does this go? How long has she been doing this? I felt betrayed on a level I never thought possible. Always acted like she was the good wife, supportive, caring, the one who had my back. And here she was, sneaking around with her boss, stealing money, lying to my face. I was furious, but beneath that I was also hurt. I kept wondering if I'd missed the signs, if I was just blind and naive. I decided I needed to confront her, but I didn't want to do it impulsively. I wanted to catch her in the act, see how she reacted when she knew I'd found out everything. So I set up a little plan. I told her I was working late, but instead I stayed home, hiding in the shadows of our bedroom. I wanted to see if she'd slip up, if she'd go to sea again, or if she'd try to hide her tracks. I kept my phone on silent, listening to every sound. My heart was pounding in my chest. Around 8 p.m. she came home earlier than usual. She was dressed in tight black leggings, a silk blouse, and her makeup was done just a little too perfectly. She looked like she'd been out doing something she wasn't supposed to. She immediately started acting nervous, texting on her phone while pretending to be busy with her keys. I watched her from the doorway, pretending to be doing something else. Then she went to the bathroom. That's when I slipped my phone out and started recording her. I wanted proof, just in case she tried to deny everything later. She stayed in the bathroom for a while, then came out with a small bag. I knew she was hiding something. When she finally sat down, I decided to confront her. I asked her straight up if she'd been cheating on me, if she'd been sneaking around with. Her face twisted into that familiar bitchy look she always wore when she was caught. "What are you talking about? You're crazy," she spat. "You're just paranoid. I work hard, I deserve to have some fun. Maybe you should look in the mirror and ask yourself why I'd need to cheat on you." That was her typical tactic. I pressed her harder, showing her the messages I found and the bank statements. Her eyes widened, but then she started denying everything. "That's all fabricated," she said, scoffing. "You're just jealous because I'm better looking and more successful than you. Just a client, a business acquaintance. You're overreacting. You don't know what you're talking about." She even had the nerve to accuse me of being controlling and insecure. It was classic, blame everyone else, deny, deny, deny. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had proof and I was done playing nice. The confrontation went on for hours. She kept spinning stories, crying, yelling, trying to make me feel guilty. She said she was just stressed, that was just a friend, that I was imagining things. But I knew better. I knew she'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. When I told her I was done, she laughed, that nasty, bitchy laugh she always used when she thought she was winning. She said she'd take everything from me, our house, our money, everything we built. That's when I realized she was planning to make me the bad guy, to spin this whole thing into some kind of betrayal on my part. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the wall. I felt numb. All the trust I once had in her was gone. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I was so blind to her lies, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to do something about it, and I knew I couldn't just walk away without fighting. I wasn't going to let her take everything we had without a fight. I needed to protect what's mine, our money, our life, my dignity. And I was just getting started. After that night, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Lies had gone too far, and her manipulations were clear. The next step was to gather everything I needed: proof, legal advice, and a plan. I spent the next few days digging through our financial records, copying all the bank statements, transfer receipts, and her phone messages. I also hired a private investigator to confirm my suspicions about her meetings with. Honestly, I didn't want to believe it, but I needed hard evidence. The PI came back with photos and videos, visiting his office late at night, leaving his house in the early hours, and even a few steamy encounters caught on hidden cameras. Meanwhile, kept up her act, trying to spin things to her friends and family. She told everyone I was controlling, jealous, paranoid, basically trying to make me look like the villain. She even started claiming I'd been abusive, which made my blood boil. I knew she was desperate, trying to turn the tables, but I didn't care. I had enough evidence to bury her in a court of law if I wanted. The financial theft was the biggest blow. She drained our savings, transferred money into her own accounts, and even opened a secret account under a false name. I decided it was time to confront her again, but this time with everything laid out on the table. I called her into the living room, laid the evidence out on the coffee table, and told her I knew everything. That's when she lost her temper. She started yelling, calling me all sorts of names: jealous, insecure, a control freak. She said I was just angry because I couldn't keep her happy, that she deserved better than a guy who was too insecure to handle her. I told her I was done listening to her lies. I told her I was filing for divorce and that I was going to take everything she tried to steal from me. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, begged me to forgive her, said she was sorry, and then suddenly she switched gears. She told me she'd sue me for joint property worth $250, $0, claiming I promised her that amount after discovering she'd been stealing from us. That was a new twist. She was trying to spin her betrayal into some kind of legal promise, some unbreakable vow I supposedly made. I couldn't believe it. Here she was, trying to manipulate the law to take everything I had worked for, all while she was cheating on me and stealing my money. I knew I had to get ahead of this. I went straight to a lawyer, explained everything, her affair, the theft, her bogus claim about the property. The lawyer listened carefully, then told me story was a complete fabrication. There was no such promise, no legal basis for her claim. She was just trying to scare me into backing down. I felt a little relief, but also more anger. How dare she try to take everything I own with lies and deception? I was ready to fight her in court if I had to. I wasn't going to let her walk away with a dime of my hard-earned money, especially not after what she'd done. In the meantime, I cut her off financially, changed all the passwords, froze her access to accounts, and started the process of separating our assets. I also warned her that I had enough evidence to expose her to everyone, her family, our friends, even her boss. I told her if she tried to sue me, I'd countersue for everything she stole, including the money she transferred illegally. She looked panicked for the first time since this whole mess started. That's when I realized she's not as invincible as she thought. She was cornered and she knew it. Now I'm just waiting for the legal process to play out. Honestly, I don't know what the future holds, but I do. No, I won't let her ruin me. I've learned the hard way that trust is fragile, and sometimes the person you love the most can turn out to be your biggest enemy. I feel betrayed, angry, and exhausted, but I also feel a strange sense of relief. I'm finally taking back control. I want to rebuild my life without her, and I refuse to let her manipulate me anymore. The biggest lesson I've learned: watch out for the quiet betrayals. They often hurt the most. The legal wheels started turning quickly after I hired my lawyer. We filed for divorce, and I made sure to include the evidence of her affair, her theft, and her false claim about the property promise. I knew she'd try to spin it in her favor, but with everything laid out, I was confident I had the upper hand. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being drained, emotionally, financially, and mentally. Every day felt like a battle, and I was constantly on edge, waiting for her next move. Meanwhile's behavior grew more desperate. She started calling me nonstop, leaving frantic voicemails, accusing me of ruining her life. She insisted she was innocent, that I was just jealous and insecure. She even tried to guilt-trip me, claiming she was the victim here, that I was destroying her reputation and her career. It was all BS. I knew her too well now. She's the kind of person who will lie, manipulate, and spin stories just to get what she wants. And what she wanted was my money, my house, everything I worked for. One day she showed up unexpectedly at my office. I was stunned. She looked exhausted, her eyes red, her makeup smudged. She begged me to talk, to listen to her. I told her to leave, that I was done playing her game, but she didn't back down. She kept insisting that she loved me, that she'd changed, that she was sorry for everything. I looked her in the eyes and told her she was too late. I wasn't falling for her lies anymore. I saw right through her, and I knew she was trying to manipulate me into dropping the case. The more she pushed, the angrier I got. I realized she was trying to wear me down, to make me feel guilty so I'd let her have her way. But I wasn't going to let her. I had all the proof I needed. I decided to go full force in court. I wanted her to see that I wasn't backing down, that I was serious about protecting myself and what's mine. I also started gathering more evidence, screenshots of her texts with receipts from her secret accounts, witness statements from friends who saw her sneaking around. It was a brutal process. Every day, I felt like I was reliving the betrayal. The shock, the anger, the disappointment, they all hit me like a ton of bricks. I kept questioning how I missed the signs, how I didn't see her true colors sooner. But what haunted me the most was the thought of losing everything because of her lies. She was trying to take my house, my savings, even my dignity. I refused to let her. I made it clear in court documents that her claims about the property were false, and I demanded full custody of the house and the assets. I wanted to put an end to her manipulations once and for all. During this whole ordeal, I also realized how much I'd let her control me emotionally. I was so desperate to keep the marriage intact, to believe she was innocent, that I ignored the warning signs. But now I see clearly. I see her for what she really is, a liar and a thief. I've started to rebuild my confidence, focusing on myself, my work, and my future. I've also cut off all contact with her except through my lawyer. I don't want to give her any more power over me. The worst part, the betrayal has left a deep scar. It's hard to trust anyone now, especially after someone you loved and trusted turned out to be your biggest enemy. But I'm learning to live with it. I know I'll get through this, even if it's one day at a time. The biggest lesson I've learned: never ignore your instincts and always protect yourself, emotionally and financially. Because when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. The court dates came and went faster than I expected. Every hearing was a nightmare, but I knew I had to stay strong. Was there, crying fake tears, trying to look innocent, but I saw through it all. Her lawyer tried to argue her case, claiming I was abusive and controlling, that she deserved the property because I promised her something in the past. It was all lies. I had the receipts, the messages, the bank transfers, hard proof that she'd been lying her way through this entire mess. I made sure the judge saw everything. What really pissed me off was how she spun her story. She claimed she only cheated because I was neglectful, that she was under so much stress and needed to make her feel alive again. She threw around words like abandonment and emotional neglect, trying to paint herself as the victim. Meanwhile, I was sitting there seething, knowing the truth. She'd been stealing from us, lying to my face, and cheating on me with her boss. All of it came out in court, and the judge wasn't buying her sob story. The lawyers fought over the assets, and I made sure to push hard. I demanded that all funds she transferred illegally be returned, and that I get custody of the house. I also requested a full financial disclosure from her, which she begrudgingly provided. It was revealing: her secret accounts, the money she'd hidden, the side hustle she'd been running. I saw how much she'd taken, how long she'd been planning to take everything I had. It made me sick, but I was determined to get what was rightfully mine. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The property claim she made was dismissed outright. She was ordered to pay back the stolen money, and I was awarded full custody of the house and the savings. That was a huge relief. I felt like I finally had some justice after months of betrayal, lies, and heartbreak. But even with the court's decision, I knew this wasn't the end. Was already planning her next move. She'd promised to fight me to the bitter end, whatever that meant. I could see her desperation. She knew she'd lost control of the situation and she hated it. Now I'm trying to rebuild. It's not easy. I've had to change my phone number, block her on every platform, and cut out all the toxic people she tried to drag into this mess. I've started therapy to deal with the emotional scars, and I've thrown myself into work and hobbies I'd neglected. I want to move on, but part of me still feels angry. Angry at her, angry at myself for trusting her so much. I keep thinking about all the things I could done differently, all the signs I missed. But I also know I have to let go of that guilt. I did what I could and I fought for what was rightfully mine. The biggest lesson I've learned from all this: never ignore the warning signs. Trust your instincts, especially when something feels wrong. And always protect yourself, financially, emotionally, legally. Because people will lie, cheat, and spin stories just to get what they want. They'll manipulate everyone around them, including the ones who love them most. I hate to say it, but I'm glad I caught her when I did. It's a hard lesson, but one I'll never forget. Moving forward, I know I'll be more cautious, more guarded, and I'll never let anyone deceive me that way again. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me. I used to believe in happily ever after, in the idea that love was enough to get through anything. Turns out, love isn't enough if you don't watch your back. Betrayal shattered that illusion, but it also made me stronger, more cautious, more aware. I've learned that people can hide their true selves behind a pretty face and a charming smile, And sometimes, the ones you trust the most are the ones capable of the worst. I've also come to understand that money isn't just about numbers, it's about security. When she started stealing from us, I felt like I'd lost a part of my future. That's why I'm now more careful than ever, making sure all my accounts are secure, my assets are protected, and I never let anyone take me for granted again. Her lies cost me more than just money. They cost me my peace of mind, my trust in relationships, and a part of my innocence. But I refuse to let her define me or my story. Most importantly, I learned that revenge isn't about revenge at all. It's about reclaiming what's rightfully yours and standing up for yourself when the world tries to knock you down. I fought hard, not just legally but emotionally. I refused to be a victim. I took control of my life again and refused to let her take that away from me. That's the real victory. Now I focus on rebuilding. I've started therapy, which helps me process everything I've been through. I've reconnected with friends and I've even begun dating again, carefully this time. I don't rush into anything, but I remind myself that not everyone is like. There are good people out there, and I deserve someone who respects and values me, someone who won't lie, cheat, or steal. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I'll say this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags. Protect your heart and your finances, and never let someone's lies define your worth. Betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to break you. Sometimes, it's just the painful push you need to stand taller and move forward. Life after betrayal isn't easy, but it's possible. And honestly, I feel like I'm just getting started.